Hello, Eric King coming to you once again from the Nugget of Truth and the Shepherd's Way. This message, I cannot overstate this. This message is probably perhaps one of the most important prophetic messages as we are in the year 2023. It has to do with a lot of controversial information, as a lot of our messages do here at the Shepherd's Way and the Nugget of Truth. Be that as it may. Now, today we're going to be looking at Zechariah chapter 6, verses 1 through 8. Now, many of you, I would urge you to watch our message on, we have messages actually as Christians. We're Christians. We're coming to you from the ancient Antiochian Church of God. However, we do have messages on things that are going on in our contemporary society, in our contemporary world, such as UFOs. This message is going to be on UFOs and the fact that they are mentioned in Scripture. Now again, I would urge you to watch, we have two posted lectures. One is Christians and UFOs, and another one called God's UFOs. The one that we have entitled UFOs and Christians, that lecture, deals with Zechariah chapter 5. And in Zechariah chapter 5, we do in fact have a prophetic message of an unidentified anomaly flying in the sky and how it's going to play a key role in the last days, in the times that we're living in, this sixth dispensation of the church era, right before we reach the 7-year tribulation and the harpazo of the church. So today I want to add another message, yet another important message to our UFO series here at the Ancient Antiochian Church of God, and that's going to be found in Zechariah chapter 6. First I'll read it, and then we'll analyze it. Zechariah chapter 6, reading from the New King James Version, verses 1 through 8. Zechariah has some say his 7th prophetic vision, but it's more accurately his 8th prophetic vision. They say 7 sometimes because it's so closely connected to the flying scroll of Zechariah chapter 5. We here like to look at it as a coming together of the 7th and 8th vision of Zechariah. Both of them have to do with aerial phenomena. Both of them are extremely important. Again, starting at Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 1. Zechariah sees this. Then I turned and raised my eyes and looked, and behold, 4 chariots were coming from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of bronze. With the first chariot there was red horses, with the second chariot black horses, with the third chariot white horses, and with the fourth chariot dappled horses, that is to say, dappled gray, or gray horses, strong steeds. Then I answered and said to the angel who talked with me, the angel meaning messenger, What are these, my Lord? And the angel answered and said to me, These are the 4 spirits of heaven who go out from their station before the Lord of all the earth. The one with the black horses is going to the north country, the white are going after them, and the dappled gray are going toward the south country. Then the strong, or red steeds, went out eager to go, that they might walk to and fro through the earth. And he said, Go walk to and fro throughout the earth. So they walked to and fro throughout the earth. And he called to me and spoke to me, saying, See those who go toward the north country, they have given rest to my spirit, God says, in the north country. In other words, they executed their mission. Now, in past lectures and studies that we've given here from the ancient Antiochian Church of God, we know that ultimately this also correlates with the gathering of the saints, as we read in the last chapter of Isaiah and other portions of Scripture, when God will send forth His angels to gather His saints. He does that first through the harpazo. The church will be taken up first, and then towards the end of the Great Tribulation, God again sends out these messengers, these craft, chariots. We know that the word chariot there in Hebrew doesn't necessarily refer to a vehicle with wheels on the earth. It means chariots from the sky. This is a word that means vehicle. So these are vehicles that God sends out, and we notice that He sends them from their station. Zechariah chapter 6, verse 5. And the angel or messenger answered and said to me, These are the 4 spirits of heaven who go from their station before the Lord of all the earth. Now we also note that these horses are different colors. Now we here in our ancient Antiochian church records believe and teach that these are actually other created beings that are going to be playing a role in God's plan. They're messengers, and they are intelligent beings that are of different, we could say, different races also. Now we know that God will send these out. We read in Isaiah chapter 13, we believe actually he's already sent these out, these entities out, these messengers, these created beings of his. We read in Isaiah chapter 13 when after the Great Tribulation that God is going to use these same beings to gather his elect and to actually execute his judgment against those who need to be destroyed at the end of the Great Tribulation. Isaiah chapter 13 and verse 5, they come from a far country, from the end of heaven, these chariots, these crafts. Now notice, even the Lord and his weapons of indignation to destroy the whole land. Now, verse 5, they come from a far country. That in the Hebrew means they come from a distant homeland, but the homeland is what? From the end of heaven. From the end of the heavens. They're not coming from homelands here on earth. No. They're coming from homelands of far countries in heaven. And these are different races of entities. We have the red, we have the black, we have the white, and we have the dappled grays in Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 3. Now, it can be seen as an extension of the seventh vision, as I said, this vision here in Zechariah, and both deal with flying objects. In Zechariah chapter 6, we come to a metaphoric description of God's UFOs. We have another message here, lecture on God's UFOs that I would urge you to watch. We can say with assurance that these are heavenly identities. Their task is to inspect planet Earth. Now, many of you know, if you watch our Creative Ages, we have a series of messages called the Creative Ages. And we know that on the first earth, way before Adam and Eve, way before the 6-day recreation or restructuring of our planet, before it became without form and void, we know that there was a series of watchers that were watching this planet led by Lucifer. We know that at about 240 million years ago, the angelic beings began a new phase of governing our planet, and they started a new project that was given them. But during this time, the Luciferian rebellion began. We put this rebellion of these entities starting at about 240 million years ago. And in order to fully understand that, you have to watch our Creative Ages messages, and I would urge you to watch them. But here in Zechariah 6, these are God's craft, chariots, coming from distant lands, from the heavens, to observe the people on earth. These are the good watchers. The first horses are the black and white. Now I want you to note this. We should not attempt to identify countries that lay north of literal Israel in regards to this vision. We know that Israel is the center of the earth. When all the land masses are together, we have Israel being the center, even when the 8th continent was there off of New Zealand. And so when we talk about north, south, east, and west from a biblical perspective, we're talking about Israel. Later on, we know that there was another verification on the first earth that was the center of the earth before Israel became the center of the earth, and that was ancient Egypt, where the 3 main pyramids are. That was the center of the earth during the first earth. Be that as it may. But we should not attempt to identify here in Zechariah 6 countries that lay north of literal Israel. This vision reveals something literally out of this world. This is something completely anomalous in regards to trying to understand it completely with human reason, logic, and wisdom. These messengers that are sent out here in Zechariah 6, they are checking out our planet Earth from the northern and southern hemisphere. These 4 chariots are the reporters to the Lord of all the earth. They're reporting what's going on here on planet Earth. The chariots contain messengers, angels. The holy messengers are God's ministers. They are employed by him for the executing of his counsels among the inhabitants of the earth. We read in Psalm 104, verses 3 and 4, "Who makes the clouds his chariot? Who walks on the wings of the wind? Who makes his angels spirits, his ministers a flame of fire?" We also have another scripture in Isaiah chapter 31, verse 5 that we need to key in on here. This has to do with what we're starting to see now. Like birds flying about, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Like birds flying about, objects in the heavens, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defend, he will also deliver it. Passing over, he will preserve it. Passing over it, he will preserve it. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven. Isaiah chapter 13, verse 5. Even the Lord and his weapons of indignation to destroy the land. Now in Isaiah chapter 31, we have something that we believe we're witnessing here in the year 2023, and we are predicting that these chariots of Zechariah chapter 6 are going to start to be seen predominantly in other hemispheres, in other parts of the earth. We know that when we get to verse 6 of Zechariah 6, the one with the black horses is going to the north country, the white are going after them, and the dappled and gray are going to the south country. Then the strong steeds, which would be the red ones, verse 7, went out eager to go, that they might walk to and fro throughout the earth. This means ultimately they're going to be seen coming from all different directions as we're witnessing them now in our skies. These are the angels that go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. Now it says that we read in Zechariah 6 verse 1 that these unidentified craft, these chariots from the far corners of the heaven that are sent by God as his watchers, coming from his station. Verse 5, "And the angel answered and said to me, These are the four spirits of heaven who go out from their station." Now we note that they come into our Earth's atmosphere, entering through two mountains, mountains of bronze. Now, the word bronze there, or brass there, in the Hebrew is more appropriately translated as copper, and you can do a Strong's concordance looking up of this word, and you can do other research on this Hebrew word. But these are mountains of copper. Now, it's interesting because copper is an excellent conductor of heat and electricity, corrosion resistant, pure copper. And it is found in the alloys of brass and bronze. Now, may I suggest to you, in our records, we believe that historically, of course, traditionally in our ancient Antiochian records and theology, these two mountains of brass or bronze represent Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. Now, Mount Ebal is 3,077 feet tall, one of the highest points in Samaria. It is opposite of Mount Gerizim, and at the foot of Mount Ebal is Jacob's well. Moses, as a matter of fact, instructed the people to make an altar, a monument of stones on which the law was inscribed there on Mount Ebal, and blessings were to come from Mount Gerizim and curses from Mount Ebal. Deuteronomy chapter 27 verses 4 through 26. Historically, these represent those two mountains. Mount Gerizim is 2,849 feet high and is southwest of Mount Ebal. Moses instructed that the blessings for keeping the law should be pronounced from Mount Gerizim, and Jotham gave the parable of the trees from Mount Gerizim in Judges 9 verses 7 through 21. Now that vision of the trees there goes all the way back to the fall of Lucifer, and also to the trees that are not literal trees but personages there that we have covered in our creative ages, found in the original Garden of Eden, which was a protected hub on the first earth at that time. This is very important information. I know it's deep, but I want you to catch this. So that's what those two mountains historically represent. Now, Ebal in the Hebrew goes back to a root word that means bald or bare, basically meaning smooth. And Gerizim, Mount Gerizim, the word Gerizim goes back to a root word to be cut off or rigid. So one mountain represents a smooth mountain and one represents a rigid mountain. Now both of these mountains are seen as made out of copper. Now, what we understand here at the ancient Antiochian church, brothers and sisters, is that there are portals in our first heaven and our second heaven. The first heaven being Earth's atmosphere, the second heaven being the cosmos, the universe, outer space. And we have 2 other lectures here on defining the heavens. We have layers of those heavens that are found in Scripture that are very important to understand. Now, these 2 brass or copper mountains represent a portal. And we also believe that even copper dust is used to create certain portals. And some phenomenon is occurring in these that transpires at 1.6 gigahertz. It's very important to understand that. So what I'm getting at here is that we have God sending craft right now. Ultimately, Jeremiah 6 verses 1 through 8 will climax in the gathering of the saints at the harpazo. Those will be the church elect, that will be the ecclesia elect, which will be gathered right before the Great Tribulation. We have other documentation on that, and I would like to go to Isaiah real quick and document that. We have here in Isaiah chapter 66 verse 15, "For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots," there's his craft, "like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword," which is his logos, his creative power, his word, "the Lord will judge all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many." Now I would hope that you would watch all of our lectures here to get a full view of what it is I'm trying to say. But one of the things I'm going to officially pronounce here from the ancient Antiochian Church of God, that Zechariah chapter 6 has begun, and these chariots are flying forth. They're God's watchers. You're going to see a lot of them. Some of them are not from God. Some of them are the fallen ones. And we've covered that in our creative ages. There's a spiritual war that's intensifying, brothers and sisters. It's all part of God's plan. We read in Joel that before the Great Tribulation, there will be signs in the heavens. We're beginning to see those signs in the heavens even now. In Joel chapter 2 and verse 30, God says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth." We note that some of these craft are going through portions of the earth. We have other studies which document that, and we'll be doing more on that. "Blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood." We've already documented the 4 blood moons. Read our articles on the 4 blood moons. And all this is to happen when? Joel chapter 2 verse 31. Before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. Before the great tribulation. Before the 7-year tribulation. We're seeing these things start to happen. It's very important for you to understand. Keep your eyes in the skies. You're going to see miraculous things. We predict that soon, very soon, God is going to send many of these craft that will be publicly witnessed and publicly seen to show you that God is in fact in control. Stay tuned here at Nugget of Truth and the Shepherd's Way. Talk to you soon.